Welcome back to the Pro Series podcast. This is episode 69 with Hector Sanchez. Hector is a photographer who specializes in interior design and architecture. We talk about how he got into the business and specifically how he got into interior design and architecture photography. He gives us some advice on some interior designers on who to look for when you're looking for a photographer and how to get published in different publications like HGTV, Architectural Digest, and so much more. But before we hop into this episode, please make sure you like, subscribe, and review this podcast on wherever you listen to this podcast. And now I hope you enjoy episode 69 with Hector Sanchez. Thank you so much, Hector, for coming on to the Pro Series podcast today. Excited to talk to you about photography and interior design. I always like to start off the podcast and talk about how I came about your company or how I just learned about you. And I had Sarah on a call a couple weeks ago, I think, or maybe it was last week. They're all running together at this point. But she talked about you and your business, and I've always wanted a photographer that specializes in interior design and architecture to come on and kind of give their input. So very glad to have you on today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, and I want to start out with your background. Growing up, did you always wanted to go into photography, or is this kind of just like a passion project that kind of led into?
I did actually. I don't know. At some point in early childhood, my parents discovered that I could take a picture without cutting heads off or legs.
Okay.
Time there was some kind of a family event or something that we needed a picture of, they would hand the camera to me. So it started there, and I think it was just ingrained from that point forward. And then it wasn't until about seventh grade that I actually took a little photo course, and that one of the teachers was interested in photography, so he started teaching the kids. He offered like a little course within seventh grade curriculum, to teach little photography skills, and then that summer, after seventh grade, my parents were divorced, so I went back home, which is Key West, to visit my dad, and asked him to buy me a camera, and that's where it started, basically. Yeah.
So this is a sidebar, but you grew up in Key West?
I did.
How was that growing up in Key West as a child? I feel like that's like an alcohol central.
It was fantastic.
Okay.
My mother really trusted my brother and I a lot, and she would allow us just to roam around Key West because there's only so far we could go, Yeah. But it was like jumping on the bike, and like I think it was like 3 blocks from my grandmother's house was the beach, and and that was in the 70s. For me, it was like late 70s. Would jump on the bike, and with the mask, fins, and snorkel, and a spear gun, and go and like spearfish or grab a conch shell with a conch animal in it. When it was, still not considered endangered. But yeah, we could go right offshore and get like a grouper or something. Those days are long gone, but that's kind of what it was like.
That's very cool.
A lot of exploring.
Yeah, that's one part of Florida I have not been to, and I hope to be there one day.
Well, I highly recommend it. And a few years ago, I photographed a story for Southern Living magazine, and they asked me to go down to do like this, like a off the beaten path kind of story of the Florida Keys, and most of it was around Island Murata, which is about 80 miles north of Key West, close. Basically, Isla Mirada is closer to the mainland of Florida. And I'd never really spent any time in Isla Mirada, and I was there for that shoot, and I really kind of fell in love with it. It just has a completely different vibe than Key West, and I'm not discounting Key West in no way. I just saying if you ever decide to go down, drive from Miami and stop in Isla Mirada for a couple of days, and then spend the rest of your time in Key West. But it'll blow your mind.
Yeah, I need to try that out. My family always goes to Florida for vacation. We try a new spot all the time. But both of those spots I haven't been to. I think my parents have been to Key West, but
Yeah.
hear about Island Mirage.
Well, I have a short list of things to do in Key West, and
Okay.
I'll bring it to you. The one thing that I tell everyone that goes to Key West is, if you go down in a car, park it and rent a bike. If you go down
Okay.
and rent a and you know, if you go down your car, park it and rent a bike. If you go down and fly down in a rent a car, take it back to the rental place, rent a bike, and just pedal around the island. That's the best way to see Key West. It's the most enjoyable way. And try to go down in the cooler season. And like right now is a really good time. Right now through uh, April is the best time to
Okay.
go. Although if you're into the water sports or into fishing and things like that, the summer is best to go because the water's much calmer and
Gotcha.
a lot warmer. Yeah.
Gotcha. We've been to Marco Island a lot,
Hmm.
where we just were this past summer.
Yeah, I saw Marco Island on. I haven't followed you yet. I saw that you followed me, um, but I was looking through your post and I saw a Marco Island. So I've
Yeah.
been there. I love Marco Island.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. But it is a completely different. It's not like a fishing or like a stereotype. Like Fort Myers was kind of like a beach town. Like
Yeah.
in Naples and Fort Myers or Marco Island is a completely different
Oh yeah,
atmosphere. Yeah,
it's like a neighborhood on on the water. It's kind of a peninsula, isn't it? Or is no, it's an island, but because there's one bridge right in and out.
yes,
Um, but it's weird. It's like a giant suburban neighborhood right on the water. Uh,
exactly. That's
there are a couple,
probably the best way.
there are a few hotels and there's some shopping, but yeah, not like a beach town as we, you know,
No,
like
not
yeah,
at
like
all.
Daytona or the Panhandle of Florida and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So growing up in Key West and you got your love for photography, were you just taking pictures of like all the landscape and everything outdoors? Is that how it started?
Yeah. Uh, Naturally, the first thing that I started doing was taking pictures of sunset. So,
Ah, okay.
um, and I knew a little bit, but I knew enough to get me by. But I took some nice pictures for whatever age I was then. And I took them back home because my mother we lived in Georgia. And then, I don't know, there was like a little photo contest or something, and I entered it, and they like kind of won that. And then the images were displayed in the school library for a few months, which was just reassuring, and it was good. It was a whole good experience. The same summer, a family friend, a really close friend of my dad's, was a kind of a novice photographer in Key West, and uh, he said, "I have something for you. It's in the basement of our house, not in the basement, in the attic of our house." And he took me up there, and it was just like half a attic full of like vintage darkroom stuff,
Oh,
equipment,
okay.
and he gave it all to me. It was the stuff that still worked, and then I took it home that same year. I took it home, and I set up like a little makeshift darkroom in my mother's bathroom. We lived in a trailer, so it was tiny, and but I made it work. I blacked out the window, and and then I put all the trays in the tub,
Hmm.
and I would just do it. And I set up the enlarger thing on the washing machine, which is right, next to the tub, and yeah, and I was just kind of doing it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you miss those days with the dark room?
Yes,
You do?
I
Okay.
do. I do. I would, I was pretty good in the dark room, but there were a lot of people that probably took it a lot more serious than I did. And one of the classes in college that was offered was called the Zone System class. It was taught by this great teacher at RIT, is by the name of Willie Osterman. And there was a couple of Willie Ostermans out there, but this is the Willie Osterman from RIT, and he taught the Zone System, which was Ansel Adams. Basically, it was a system that he set up for exposing for his photography in the field, and then there was a second or third step to it in the dark room, where we would go through this whole. But it really was based on how you expose things at the time of making the photograph. And anyway, so that you would take into the darkroom as well, and you'd make these fantastic, uh, beautiful prints, black and white prints. But yes, I do, and maybe one day I'll pick up some darkroom equipment again and tinker around with it. But I
Yeah.
do. I enjoy printing from a desktop, and I have a large plotter printer. It prints like, I think, 44, 45 inches wide.
Oh, wow,
So I
yeah.
can massive prints, and that's kind of a new thing for me, which I want to exhibit or sell or show more of my work. Um, and that's a way of doing it. So I can do it black and white or color that way. However, uh, in the dark room, the analog way of doing it is it involves chemistry and silver, and
Mhm.
silver halide crystals attach themselves to the paper, and so it's pretty close, but I'm not really sure that the digital prints will ever be quite as beautiful as a darkroom print.
Yeah.
Uh,
In high school, I took a graphic design class that we had a whole section on photography, and there was a dark room, and we learned about it all, and we had to develop our own. But do they even sell actual film anymore?
yes, there are.
You do?
Yes, actually, still makes film,
Okay.
uh, much smaller batches, and I think that they really trimmed down their catalog of film. I think they stuck to the staples, and um, there are other companies. Ilford still makes film.
Okay.
Um, Ilford actually, oddly enough, makes large format film, which is so. I have a studio camera. It's a wooden. It's a camera made of mahogany wood, and then
Oh,
it was built in the late '50s. It's a well-known company in that era for making large format cameras for studio photography. It's called a Deerdorf, but the format is 11 by 14 inches. So
okay.
imagine, you have a 35 millimeter frame that's about that big versus, 11 by 14 inch. So
Mhm.
it would be a sheet of film that that's loaded into a holder that you're able to put two sheets in, one per each side. So you make an exposure, you flip it over, and you make another exposure. Then you take those out, you go into the dark room and you process them. But yeah, it's a big sheet of film, and the camera's giant.
That's crazy.
That's something I want to start doing personal work with, and I may. What I'm thinking about using it for is to do alternative processes, which could be like uh, glass plate negatives and tin types and that sort of thing.
Gotcha. That's
Yeah.
that's cool.
The
Do you,
camera need the camera is so large, and it's mounted to a stand, a rolling stand, and it like it needs a dedicated space to work with.
yeah. That's
So
cool.
I haven't figured that out yet, but eventually.
Yeah. So when did you start up in photography for interior design and architecture?
Uh, okay, so just I'll go back a little bit,
Okay.
and so I went to a 4-year college. I decided to go when I was 27. By I was 28. I was September of 1998 when I went back to when I went back to college and went to a
Okay.
4-year college, Rochester Institute of Technology. Most people know it as RIT. So yeah, I was older and I was taking things a lot more seriously, and I had another career. Was a I was a surgical assistant, um, and decided, as bad as I wanted to be a doctor or become a surgeon, it's just medical school wasn't an option for me.
Yeah.
So I chose my second love, which was really my first love. So I decided to go to RIT and go through their program, and did really well there, and had a great time. And it was about 2002 that I moved to New York City, and I started working there. And I was most interested in photographing still life, food related.
Oh, okay.
So I was shooting for a lot of different magazines and such, and food projects, and still life and what have you. And I have a really good buddy, a really good friend of mine. His name is Eric Piasecki, and Eric was also shooting mostly still life, and then he kind of ventured off into to shooting interiors. Um, and I started working with him, or started assisting him uh, when he was shooting still life, and then I started assisting him when he was shooting interiors, amongst the other photographers I was working for. But
Hmm.
uh, Eric's love and skill of shooting interiors rubbed off on me, and uh, I was still in New York, so I was doing a little bit of everything, still life, food, and started kind of dabbling in interiors. And um, eventually, uh, I'm leaving a lot of stuff out, but roughly I was in New York for 8 to 10 years,
Okay.
uh, on and off. But in 2012, a Southern Living magazine, reached out to me and asked me if I'd consider being a staff photographer for them. So January of 2013, I moved to Birmingham, Alabama for them, and they hired me as their staff food photographer. And I was shooting uh, mostly food, of course, and still life. And then from time to time, I would shoot some kind of interiors project, whether it was for them, or an interior designer, or what have you. And I just started shooting a little bit more and a little bit more. And um, they actually had a Southern Living had a staff interiors photographer, and um, she decided to go on her own, and to be a freelance. And then that slot opened up for me, and which was great. And
Hmm.
yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
That's cool. So, what do you like interiors better?
um a lot of people have asked me that, and I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I i i just love what I do, period.
Okay. Yeah.
um the difference is, i get I get a little tired of being in the studio sometimes.
Okay.
uh, and what happened was, uh, just the way they work in the studios, at where at the time it was Time Inc., and then it became Meredith, and now become this Meredith slash, I forget the name of the other company. Um, but they set up a bunch of studios there, and they had, uh, multiple staff photographers, but nobody had a dedicated space. You would kind of like move around based on where they had multiple photographers, they had multiple food stylists,
Hmm.
and now the food stylists had dedicated kitchens, but the photographers didn't. So they would move you closest as possible to the kitchen where the food stylist was, which I totally understand. But it makes the photographer a bit of a vagabond, and like just uh, you're never settled.
Oh
And
yeah,
most photographers just like to have their space, set it up, how with the cabinets and stuff organized and what have you, and it was just never felt that way. So that kind of wore on me, and so I think that was like the beginning of the end for me, studio stuff, even though I still do it. Uh,
absolutely.
but
So,
no, I mean, I love the great thing about interiors is you're always working with someone new,
mhm,
and and uh, every space is different. Whether it's an entire house or it's just a kitchen or a bedroom or something, but it's always something new, and I really enjoy that, and I really enjoy you know how talented those people are, those designers, and how they layer and color and texture, and make that work in a specific space.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing we wanted to talk about was how to get into a publication like Southern Magazine or HGTV magazine or something. As a designer, that's a goal for a lot of people. They want that
Yeah, sure.
see their pictures in there, and it's obviously not going to come from them or from an iPhone picture. What's some advice on how to get published and the importance of getting a photographer that specializes in interiors specifically um, for their jobs, so they have a chance to get on into a publication?
um well, there's a few steps to that. First of all, it's important that designers are familiar with publications, and the publications that they like the most are the ones that they think exhibits their style, or the type of projects that they work on is a good fit for certain magazines. So becoming familiar with the editors, the homes editors for different magazines, and the photo editor is very important, or the photo director is really important in a magazine. That information is available in every magazine. Uh, the front section, the first, let's say, 6 pages or so, there's a section called the masts, and under it, that mast is a list of all the all the people who uh, are part of the magazine. And so it starts with the editor in chief, the publisher, and so on. It goes down, and basically uh, all the types of editors, whether it's a homes editor or a food editor or so on, they're all there. And you can get names there, and sometimes it actually comes with an email to find those people. Uh, but so the next step is sending out photographs, introducing yourself, and then sending out a few photographs of a particular project that you'd like them to see. Um, you know, uh, I've seen a lot of, like, just being with the magazine. I would see sample images that a designer would send in of a particular project, and actually could be pictures that they took with their phone.
Mm.
you know Editors are able to see past the bad lighting or whatever, angles and converging angles, whatever. That's not so important, but having good photography is also very important. And that the good photography is what, I think you would want to put in your social media platform, or your definitely your websites. But uh, then finding a photographer, is, uh, again, looking at magazines, getting familiar with people out there photographing. Not everybody, well, maybe I don't know, some of the photographers that you see in the magazines might be so busy that they're just not, and say that you're a new interior designer, somebody's it, what you could do is you could reach out to like a more well-known photographer and ask them if they have an assistant or something that can help you get
Yeah.
started, if they aren't available.
Yeah, someone
It's a
they're mentoring or something like that.
Eric, that's how I really got started. Eric, saw that I was talented and trusted me, has good rapport with me, knows my work ethic, and he would start recommended, jobs that he wasn't available for, just didn't want to do, whatever. He would recommend me, and then it started to build from there.
That's very cool. This
Photography
might
was.
be a loaded question, but if there's a designer out there that um, wants to pick up photography and wants to learn about it and then wants to do their own jobs, is there a certain type of camera they should be looking for to shoot interior work?
Um, Not necessarily. You could.
Okay.
It's really the user. You could have a crap camera, but the best you could have the best camera, but if you don't know how to use it, it defeats the purpose. You could have a crappy or a so-so camera. If you know how to use it, you're still going to get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
It's really the basic photography skills that you have to start with. Understanding exposure, uh, learning how to understand light and read light, natural light. Um, some spaces have no windows, so what are you going to do? So it's beyond the knowledge of knowing how to use a camera. Then you have to know about how to use like artificial lights. It's possible to photograph rooms or spaces just um, using the ambient light or the existing light that was designed for the room, that is. But that comes with its disadvantages, because one light is much brighter or another light might be much dimmer, and it's very hard to learn and understand how to balance those things. Also, the color temperature is always an issue. It gets a little technical and complicated,
Mm.
but I don't know. I think a designer that has decent photography skills, it would be beneficial for a designer to actually to photograph their spaces at least well enough that they can use those images to pitch a story. If they can come up with better images.
Okay. So once you pitch it, and a magazine likes it, they will send out like a photographer of their
Yes.
liking if the photo wasn't up to par.
Yeah, it's and that, that's also uh dependent. The homes editor might want to add color, he or she might want more flowers, or just they may want to move some furniture around a little bit, just what have you.
Yeah.
They might want to photograph it in a certain season. uh
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah,
That's interesting.
but it's not uncommon for even if a designer hires a professional photographer to come and photograph, that they pitch those images and they still send another photographer anyway, for those reasons. I mean, I photographed projects for designers that actually have gotten them published,
Okay.
but they have chose to use my images, and they have chose to send another photographer for whatever reason, like the ones I mentioned before.
Gotcha.
I do that a lot. Actually, the majority of my work is for interior designers, uh, in hopes or in order to photograph something well enough to get it to hopefully it'll get published.
Absolutely. Yeah. Help them out.
It's better. It's would say easier, but it's a little bit more likely these days that if the if the photography and the space is good enough that they'll pick up the images and publish them, especially now post COVID, or at least where we were with COVID a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Uh, Things really slowed down. As as we all know, magazines just stopped shooting,
Yeah.
and then they a lot of them have are looking for content that because they don't have they have less of a pool to pull from now, if at all.
Exactly.
So it's a good thing for designers. That's actually a good time for designers that to get recognized or
Mhm.
get um, so uh,
Absolutely. Shoot your
yeah,
shot. Try to just the worst thing they could say is no.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
But going back to doing your own photography, that's something I've actually thought about. Is maybe offering some pointers,
Or
even
yeah, classes on it. Yeah.
if it's with your iPhone, just teaching, how to keep your looking, how to expose, study light, being parallel to the walls you're photographing, versus perpendicular. Or if you are perpendicular, then these are the other things you have to consider. Um, some things, some ideas on how to control light, uh,
Absolutely.
use it, or you
I
know,
think that would be very beneficial,
yeah,
because a lot of designers want to keep it in-house and, paying someone to that could get costly, and the amount of jobs that they're pulling through on a constant, on if they're a well-known company.
mm,
But yeah, that'd be awesome. And that might be something we talk about in a future episode as well.
well, Sarah and I have actually we've uh, before COVID, we were talking about doing some kind of workshop where I'm teaching photography skills and she's going to teach social media skills and ideas. And it would be geared to like influencers or people who actually just want to learn more about both. So it would be
Absolutely.
kind of like, you know, 2 or 3 day getaway, and you would get both photography and social media, and we still will probably do it. So I'll
That'd be
definitely,
awesome.
yeah, we would love
Yeah.
to have you part of it.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I mean, with both you and Sarah's background, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know I have connections. I'm on the board for the NKBA kitchen. It's National Kitchen and Bath Association here in Pittsburgh, and we try to
Oh,
do that stuff all the time. So if you
yeah.
partnered with an association like that, you'd get a really good turnout.
Yeah. Yeah. We started discussing this. Sarah and I are a couple.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the cat's out of the bag, or however people are always like sending her messages asking, hey, y'all should get together. Well, we are, and
Yeah.
we just couldn't keep it secret anymore because people we just thought it was the best thing to do and be the most professional thing to do.
Absolutely.
Um, so, but anyways, early in our relationship, we had visited Chattanooga, and
Okay.
there's a hotel Chattanooga that we started to talk to about it, where they would offer the rooms at a discounted rate, but they were in a part of town right next to the is it the Chattanooga River, the Tennessee River? I forget. Sorry, venue is, it's right there, and it's next to this historic walking bridge. And it was the perfect setting. You
Yeah.
know, it would have the hotel, then we would have some kind of conference space in the hotel at our disposal, and then I would have places that I could send the student or the people participating in the uh, and what am I trying to say? And the event that we were hosting,
Yeah.
to go out and and like I can send them out with an assignment, they can come back and then we can critique it and talk about that stuff later. But
Absolutely.
uh, yeah,
That's
um,
really cool. I
that,
spoke at, oh, what was that?
it's still we're gonna do it. It's just
Awesome.
yeah,
I
both
look
of us
forward
have
to it.
had
Yeah.
so
I spoke at an event a couple, like probably a month and a half ago or so on social media, and
mm,
designers love that because, that's something. Social media is a free marketing tool that a lot of them don't know how to use.
right.
They're taking in all the information, and photography goes hand in hand with social media. So that'd be awesome. I would even attend that to
Okay,
learn more.
we'll
Yeah,
get
but
you here.
yeah, absolutely. So I want to end with where people could follow you on social media,
Uh,
and they could contact you.
okay, there are two places. I have a rep, which is Esther. I'm sorry, either artist ETHER. Oh boy, I better double check that one. You might have to edit. Um, I can't look on my phone because
You
reasons.
should be able to. Uh, yeah, you should be able to. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Um, you there?
Yep.
You see, I'm trying to get you to come back, and it went.
Went black.
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like the video might be turned off.
Okay,
There
there we
we
are.
go.
Okay. All right. So ask me that again, and we can pick up there.
Yeah. Hector, I want to finish off and seeing where people could follow you on social media or reach out to you for maybe a business
Yeah.
opportunity.
Um. Uh. So, my Instagram page is where I'm most active, and so that's Hector HECTORM Sanchez SANCHEZ photo PHOTO Hector M Sanchez photo on Instagram, and I love Instagram.
Yeah.
It's a great way, especially as a photographer, because it's always been image based. Now it's video based mostly. It seems
Yeah.
that, but it was a great outlet, to just so that said, I love to post personal and professional work on there. So I could take a cool picture of my dog, or just to take a picture of my dog running around the yard, and then the next image could be, a bathroom that I just shot or something. And yeah, I like to try to keep it a little bit loose and not so regimented, or it has to look a specific way.
Polished. Yeah.
I tell you, I go back and forth with how I feel about that, but I just want to relate to other people, and let them know that I'm an approachable person and
Yeah.
flexible. And yeah,
That's
so
all what social media is about. That's how you build your
right.
following. You have to
That
relate to them.
and I have the same problems that you have, and or
Yeah.
whatever. What I do try to do is try to keep personal stuff off of it,
Yeah.
and politics. I keep that out of it too.
Yes. Because that could ruin you.
There actually might be a little hint, like I'm not sure that you would ever actually find, but but yeah, time to time there might be a little something that really gets up my politically. But no, I really try to keep religion, politics, and personal stuff off of it.
Yeah.
But so I have an agent or rep in New York. His name is James Taylor, not the James Taylor, but the James Taylor.
Okay.
uh, Either artist, ETHER artists.co. And
Awesome.
so James represents a variety of photographers, whether it could be a still life photographer, food photographer, fashion, people, lifestyle. And then he also represents food stylists and prop stylists. And
That's
that's actually
awesome.
a great place to go to see a variety of, what people do, and the just a variety of different creatives in one place.
Yeah,
I highly
absolutely.
recommend that you go out to, to go out and check out uh, James's website. So James helps me with commercial work or advertising.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, if someone were interested in talking to me about photography, I asked that they would reach out to me directly, which is Hector M. Sanchez at me.com. Hector M. Sanchez at me.com.
Perfect.
But sometimes if a project is very complicated and might be used commercially, then I'll refer them to James.
Oh, okay.
There, the interior designer stuff is just, it all boils down to commercial usage. And
Mhm.
commercially, images will be used worldwide or nationally or regionally and so on. And then length of time the images are available. But those are all questions that I would love to get. I would love for people to reach out to me about. Can discuss
Awesome.
that. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
and,
Hector,
and I'm looking for new clients. So,
yeah, we always are. Yes. Thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. I can't wait to get this out.
thank you. I really appreciate your time and your questions, and I hope we can do it again. On another topic related to
Absolutely.
photography and interiors.
Absolutely.